Hi, everybody, and welcome to the PlantStock channel. My name is Jesse, if we haven't met yet. And today we have a special guest, Warren Redlich, from who's most famous, I think, for being a super bullish individual when it comes to Tesla. Warren, if you just introduce yourself a little, who you are and your background.
Sure. My name is Warren Redlich for starters, but I grew up in the United States and traveled quite a bit of the world. And by training, I'm an attorney or a lawyer. I'm mostly done as a lawyer. Expect to be completely done by January. Probably more than 10 years ago, I started a YouTube channel and just played around with it. And in 2019, I started making videos about SpaceX and Tesla and other technology topics. I got really excited about SpaceX in 2015 when the first orbital rocket booster landed. Started investing in Tesla in early 2016. Have bought, from my own account and family accounts, probably more than 20 times. I've never sold a share.
Wow.
If you're following Tesla stock, you know I'm very happy right now.
Oh, yeah.
I've been making videos, some very popular videos about why I think Tesla stock is going much higher than it is now. And along the way, I've covered other topics, and one particular topic that I think you wanted to talk about that I made a couple videos about is, what else is being changed in a revolutionary way that could really have a big impact on humanity and Earth and the environment. And I kind of got turned on to plant-based meats. So Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods, and a little bit, I'm interested in cell-based meats, which is similar but different.
Yeah.
I haven't really covered that one as much, but I think that those really have the potential to radically alter humanity's use of the planet.
Yeah.
In a very positive way, while not just that, but helping people get better, healthier nutrition for less money. In the long run. Not right now, it's not cheaper, but in the long run, I think ultimately nutrition will be less expensive because of this potential revolution. So I made one video about Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods, which I called, if you search my YouTube channel, with the first video is called Beyond Impossible.
Yeah, just thought I would show your video, your channel here. Warren Redlich. And I pronounced your name wrong before, didn't I?
Happens all the time. No, I'm flattered. Just the fact that you wanted to talk to me is flattery enough. Don't worry about it. Clear for the record. But and then more recently, I did an interview with Mayor Thacker, who is an analyst who covers Beyond Meat. He makes videos. He does his own research, and he was very compelling. And after interviewing him, I decided to buy some Beyond Meat stock.
Awesome.
Not a big purchase, but I bought some Beyond Meat stock. I think that there's real, and you can't buy Impossible Food stock yet because it's privately held.
Yeah.
There really aren't a lot of publicly traded companies in the space, and I think that Beyond Meat. After talking to Mayor, I think Beyond Meat is making some really good moves that will help, particularly lowering the cost.
Yeah.
Right now, Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods are expensive compared to regular meat. They're not expensive compared to premium meat, but they're expensive compared to regular meat.
Yeah.
And I think if they achieve certain goals, then they're going to be able to get the price close, at least, to regular meat, and eventually lower than regular meat. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, that's what I think you and before we get into it, though. So basically you said how long you've been investing in Teslas, which is since 2016. And me, myself, I've been investing in Tesla for 2 years soon, but went in more heavily just before the split. I think it was back in August, right?
Still good timing. That's still good timing.
Yeah, I think I've done about a 3.5x right now. So nothing compared to some of you guys out there like you and Dave Lee and solving the money problem, Steven.
I think my average right now, my average share is up 14x.
Wow.
And some of them are up like 30x or more than 30x.
My God.
The early purchases are up like 30x.
Well, I keep hoping this sensation that where was about $300 where I went in post split, and I keep thinking like there'll be a time where people would think that that was an amazing price. So that
Well, it already is,
yeah,
but
true, true.
you know, for people who don't follow my channel on Tesla, I believe Tesla is currently trading around $1,200 a share. I believe that Tesla is going to $25,000 a share and possibly higher. So if you get in now at 1,200, you have a strong chance of getting a 20x, and it could be a lot. You know, a lot of things depend on how things break out. If the robo taxi model follows where I think it's going, then 25,000 is cheap.
Yeah.
And then you have Tesla Bot, which is a wild card. You know, if you watch my interview with Dave Lee and you see Dave Lee talking about what Tesla Bot could be in terms of economic value, it's staggering.
Yeah.
You know, it could be $100,000 a share or more.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually,
I haven't modeled Tesla Bot yet. It's sort of like it's so big that it's hard to wrap your head around, but that's coming. I'll be doing a model on that soon.
unfortunately, I mean, the funny thing is with my channel is it is mostly focused on plant-based stocks, right? Since I'm a vegan myself, like Mayur, and I haven't eaten meat for over 20 years, so I see this industry being a game changer for sure for the planet and sustainability, health, and obviously the animals. But funnily enough, when I started investing, and I'm quite new to this, I've only done it for about 2 years. Always dreamt about doing it, but yeah, had excuses my whole life. But when I went in, I went quite heavily for being me, being a teacher, and it's about 70 or 75% of my portfolio is Tesla, and I compare Tesla every now and then to Beyond Meat and the plant-based sector, but I don't do many videos as of yet. Don't want to leave the niche too much, but I am super bullish about it, and it began actually with a close friend of mine who's a Canadian, and he told me the whole bullish story 2 years ago, and I just felt like it just correlated with everything I believe in. And as a historian,
I have to ask you. You said you haven't eaten meat in 20 years. Have you had Beyond Meat or Impossible Foods products?
Yeah, I've eaten them for.
You have eaten meat. You haven't eaten animal-based meat.
True. Good point. No, that's true. So no, but so I'm extremely bullish about the company and started watching your channel maybe a little over a year ago. I remember already then you talked about maybe reaching around $10,000 before the end of the decade. And I remember thinking, man, that would be so amazing. But maybe that's a bit too bullish, just trying to keep my expectations lower. And I must say, considering what's been going on now the last couple of months, and when they introduced the Tesla bots, and then the ARK Invest, I love them. I love Kathy Woods. The way they paint it up and the way I understand the company and where we're headed in the future, I'm actually seeing $10,000 before the end of the decade as not bullish. It actually feels like it would be weird if it wouldn't be around those numbers.
Do you want me to give a brief explanation of where I think Tesla is going to, say, 2030?
Definitely.
So I think there's different scenarios you have to consider. And so my bear scenario, my sort of like worst case scenario for Tesla going forward is they never succeed with full self-driving. So they don't get there, and they don't manufacture as much as they're hoping for, and they don't get to 20 plus million vehicles a year by 2030. But you have to look at what they've built, right? They built 4 factories that collectively should build at least 6 million vehicles a year. Between Giga Berlin, Giga Texas, Fremont, and Shanghai. And I think Giga Texas alone could potentially produce 6 million vehicles a year. If you look at the size of it, you compare it to the size of Tesla Fremont, which ultimately should produce 900,000 vehicles a year. It's 5 times the size, and it should be more efficient. So ultimately, Giga Texas should produce 5 times or more what Fremont produces, and that could be as much as 6 million vehicles a year just out of one factory.
Wow.
Right. But then you add, but just saying, let's say they get to 10 million vehicles a year, you also have to look at the fact that as they spread production into more places, and as they make production more efficient by reducing, going to single piece castings of the front and rear, structural battery pack, as battery costs come down, their cost of producing cars is going down. And their cost of delivering cars to customers is going down. Once Giga Berlin opens, assuming Germany wakes up and decides, yeah, we do really want cars that don't pollute the environment to come from Germany. Once Giga Berlin opens up, the cost of delivering cars to European customers goes down dramatically because you don't have to ship them from China or the US.
Yeah.
And once you do that, the Chinese factory is now delivering cars to China and maybe other parts of Asia. So the transportation cost to those customers goes down.
Yeah.
And then you get the supply chain in order, and the cost of getting the supplies to the factory goes down. And what we're seeing, if you look at Tesla's numbers, is the number of vehicles delivered is going up fast. The revenue is going up roughly as fast as the number of vehicles delivered. A little bit less for a couple of reasons, but they're pretty close. But profit is rising significantly faster than deliveries and revenue because the costs are going down faster.
Yeah.
Right? The cost per vehicle, is going down faster. So when you put that together and you look out to the future, even next year, by the end of next year, you look and you say, okay, this is where deliveries and revenue should be roughly, and this is where profit should be. And profit goes up a lot. And then you look at, okay, how do we value companies? We value companies based on their earnings per share.
Yeah.
We look at their profit or their earnings per share, and we apply a price earnings ratio. And
so we should have even more investors being interested at that time.
So I think we're going to see a potential run rate of $5 earnings per share for a quarter by the fourth quarter of 2022, if not sooner. And that's a run rate of $20 a share. And now your price earnings ratio only looks like 60 for a very fast growing company. And so you can see where, okay, I could see the share price going to 2,000 or 2,500 by the end of next year, just on that simple analysis. But when you start looking out to 2030 and you say, okay, let's say they're going to deliver 10 million cars in 2030, right? Everything goes right. Not everything goes right, but they're at least able to deliver cars in volume from the factories they have, and they build a couple more factories, and that gets them to 10 million vehicles a year. The value of that, because the cost of producing vehicles has gone down, is a much higher profit rate and a much higher share price, because they only produced 500,000 vehicles last year. They're not even going to make 900,000 vehicles this year, right? So to go to 10 million is a 10x, right? It's a more than 10x from where they are right now. So that's that side of it. And that doesn't include, you figure they're going to produce some energy storage products, but that won't grow as much as my more optimistic forecast. But still, you get some revenue and some profit from Tesla Energy. And there's other, sources of revenue in there. But that's where you get to sort of my bear case of $8,000 a share. Where you can get optimistic is you can say, well, what if they actually deliver on full self-driving? What if they actually start a robo-taxi network, which is the equivalent of Uber without drivers?
Yeah.
Right? And each robo-taxi should make, at least in the early days, $50,000 a year in profit. And Elon talked at Autonomy Day about Tesla having its own fleet of 10 million vehicles. Well, if you have 10 million vehicles making $50,000 a year in profit, that's $500 billion a year in gross profit just from the robo-taxi network. And the value of 500, you start to do some math on that, and you figure, okay, well, that's $300 billion in gross and net profit a year, and you give it a decent price earnings ratio of 50, right? Because it's still a fast growing company at that point. And you get to $15 trillion and a $15,000 share price, right? And I think that's leaving out all the other revenue, all the other profit from energy and all these other things. And that's leaving out private individuals who own their cars, putting their cars in the robo-taxi fleet. And that generates additional revenue. Or Hertz, which just ordered 100,000 cars, at least we think. And Hertz putting their cars in the robo-taxi network. And what share of that revenue is Tesla getting?
And so free advertisement also there.
So that's my view is 2026 is when we see a 10 million robo-taxi fleet. And really, when you add everything together, you see a share price around 25,000. If the robo-taxi fleet is live, if everything else is clicking, you're potentially talking about $25,000 a share. And I don't see a lot of roadblocks to this, by the way, other than government. But you get out to 2030 and you say, well, what's the potential for a full-scale robo-taxi network where people who own cars decide, I don't want to bother owning a car anymore. I just want robo-taxis to come pick me up. It costs you less money to ride in a robo-taxi than it costs you to own a car. It's more convenient. You never have to replace the windshield wipers. You never have to change the tires. You never have to get an oil change. You never have to fill the gas tank. You never have to wash the car. You never have to shop for car insurance. You never have to sell your car. You never have to buy a car. All the hassles that go along with owning a car that we sort of accept and we've internalized, all of a sudden you're freed from all that and you save money. And you never have to find your car in a parking lot, right? Because the car drops you off at the front and picks you up at the front. You never have to scrape ice off the windshield, and you never have to, all the different things that affect people in so many different ways. It's much more convenient. So then the question is, well, what's the potential for a full robo-taxi fleet serving, at least the wealthy world? I think ultimately we serve the poor countries as well. It's something I'm working on separately. And I don't think it's crazy to say you have a 100 million robo-taxi fleet. A fleet of 100 million robo-taxis, and the profit is going to decline because the price has fallen for a robo-taxi ride. Yes. So now instead of making $50,000 in profit a year per vehicle, maybe you're making $20,000 in profit. But you 10x the number of vehicles, and you reduce the profit per vehicle by a factor of 2.5. You just 4x'd the total gross profit to $2 trillion, right? So now you're starting to look at a $50,000, $100,000 share price. Right. And then again, that doesn't incorporate Tesla Bot, which I haven't modeled yet. And the potential for Tesla Bot is bigger than all of this.
Yeah.
I haven't modeled it yet, but the potential for Tesla Bot is bigger than all of this. Significantly bigger.
I definitely want to see that.
So that's the crazy Warren ultra bull story for Tesla stock, is that if you buy it now at $1,200 a share, you could see an 80x return in 9 years. Right. Okay, and I will be comfortably wealthy at that point.
Yeah,
as will you.
Yeah, I mean, I've counted if it would go to around just $8,000 in the next 9-10 years. Then, when I talk to my girlfriend and when talking about our family, depending on how we want to live our life, we can basically retire,
right?
And that means that if it's only at $8,000, and depending on, so sometimes we've talked about that. Why are we stressing with she's working with separate things to trying to get in more of an income, and me doing the YouTube channel, even though it's real fun, it's very stressful at times. So sometimes, just sit back and relax, be happy with what we have. We're good to go.
Why is having a YouTube channel stressful?
I think it shouldn't be stressful, I guess, but it takes about, I work as a teacher full time, so it's about 45 to 50 hours a week, and then about another 20 hours with the YouTube channel. So sometimes, juggling that with family life, not always the easiest. But I'm getting more efficient the way I work usually, and trying to learn what to focus on. So
I've had more than 50 jury trials. So this is not stressful.
I realize that. Actually, it was about 15 years ago when I studied at community college. So I was pretty old when I started to become a teacher. So, but it was about 20 years ago, actually. I stood between, do I want to become a teacher or a lawyer? And I had a good philosophy and history teacher, and he sat me down and talked to me at community college. And he said, well, is the law, is that black and white for you? And I said, nah. And I said, yeah, you probably shouldn't be a lawyer, in the way he saw life. So, yeah. And I enjoy teaching, and I love history and English. So that became my major, basically. Yeah. So I probably would have made a lot more money as a lawyer, though. But there's more to life, I guess. But all right. So I think it's funny, though, because I was thinking about that the other day, when you have your bull cases, but also your bear cases, and how just a year ago, if not a half a year ago, people would often say yeah. I could hear comments about, well, that's like Warren. He's like far out there, He's like, he has these extreme valuations, and And sometimes I actually heard when I was talking about Beyond Meat, where I see them going in the next 10 years, they're like, oh, you should talk to Warren. But
And here we
then
are.
again, here we are, because like both with Chicken Genius and Steven from Solving the Money Problem, when I hear their predictions, it's getting closer and closer to where you're at.
I think Steven and I are pretty close. I haven't looked at Chicken Genius lately, but Steven and I are pretty close.
yes, yeah,
Steven,
Chicken
we both
Genius. Sorry, you go.
we all like I don't have like one story of one model of how Tesla's going to go. I have something called the battery revenue model, where I just look and say, okay, they said they're going to produce 3 terawatt hours of batteries, and they're probably going to buy another 3 terawatt hours from suppliers. What's the revenue associated with 6 terawatt hours of batteries, right? And it turns out that the revenue story from 6 terawatt hours of batteries which is 6,000 gigawatt hours of batteries, and you start to figure out, okay, wait a minute, if they you start with a Tesla Model 3 that has an imaginary Tesla Model 3 that has a 50 kilowatt hour pack, and you say that it costs $30,000 US. The revenue is 30, because the typical Tesla Model 3 is actually like 60 or 65 or 75 kilowatt hours, but just to oversimplify, so 50 kilowatt hours, $30,000, then 20 of them would be a megawatt hour, right? And that would be $600,000, right? Well, then a gigawatt hour would be $600 million, right? And then a terawatt hour would be $600 billion in revenue. And we're talking about 6 terawatt hours. So that's $3.6 trillion in revenue. Now you figure over time, the revenue per gigawatt hour will drop a little bit. So maybe you come down to $3 or $2 trillion in revenue, but still the value of the company at $2 trillion in revenue is really, really high. Right. So that's another way of looking at it. And so there's different ways of looking at the story. Right. And now, again, I said the revenue will come down, but if FSD, full self-driving, becomes real, then the revenue per kilowatt hour might go up.
Yeah.
And then what's the revenue per kilowatt hour for gigawatt hour for energy storage? And it's lower unless you include the solar panels. When you add like a solar install with the power walls, let's say in a home installation, then the revenue per kilowatt hour is actually per gigawatt hour is actually higher, because there's no gigawatt hours in the solar panels. So you're getting revenue with no gigawatt hours. So, and then you have the mega pack installations where Tesla's probably not supplying the solar panels. There's a lot of different ways you can slice that. And is there other revenue streams like AutoBidder? But that's one way of looking at it. The robotaxi model is another way of looking at it. TeslaBot's another way of looking at it, which I haven't even done yet. So I have different models that come up with different numbers. I don't have one number because I don't know what's going to happen. I just say, well, here's this model, here's this model. They're all good.
Yeah.
Right. They're all good stories. So it's reasonable that somebody else, Mayor Thacker's going to look at it. Stephen Mark Ryan's going to look at it. Chicken Genius is going to look at it. Everybody has their own angle on it, but all of our stories are good stories. And, I think the question ultimately is, what's the bear story?
Yeah.
What's the Tesla Q story? Oh, the competition is coming. Really? Are we done with the competition is coming yet? The only thing holding Tesla back is being able to produce enough cars.
Yeah.
Right. And then being able to make FSD a reality. And sorry, for your viewers who don't know, I have FSD beta on my car. So I bought a 2018 Model 3 from Omar Kazi, and it had FSD beta on it, and they didn't take it away. So I have FSD beta. I drive FSD beta. It is not perfect, but it is amazing.
Yeah.
Like when you think about what it's doing, it's amazing. So pretty incredible stuff.
That's what I'm really looking forward to here. And the thing is, sometimes I try to cool down my expectations, because I'm thinking, well, come on. We're so many people in the world who are invested in Tesla now. And if it's really this great, we're all going to get rich. And then I realized that, well, a majority of investors, I mean, they say they're long term, but usually sooner or later they chicken out or choose to, sell.
Take profit.
Yeah, take profit. Exactly. That was a bit harsh saying chicken out, but yeah. But I realized one of my strengths is that I don't get that affected by the short term noise. As long as I can see the fundamentals and I have the vision, I don't get worried about it. The only thing I keep thinking about is that I said with some of the plant stocks that I'm invested in, that they've been extremely volatile the last year. One of them had went up like 400-500% in 5-6 weeks, and to this day, sometimes I feel like, well, that really wasn't an organic growth at all. So it was a lot of hype there. So I just felt maybe I should have taken some profit there and just let it come back down. But I don't believe in timing the market, so I'm so harsh when it comes to the, I'm a long-term investor and just,
I think you have to ask yourself the question, where do I think this stock is going?
right.
Right. I just don't have the time to play short-term games.
No.
Right. I look at the stock and okay, Tesla's at $1,200 a share and I should take some profits. Well, no, I'm not planning on selling my stock until maybe 2030.
Yeah.
If I sell it at all, which is a whole nother conversation. My time horizon is out to 2030. So what do I gain by selling now? If I think that it's going to 20, and the theory would be, well, I'll sell now at 1,200, right? There was a rough peak around 1,200 and it dropped back a little bit. I'll sell now at 1,200 and I'll wait for a dip to buy in. Well, what if you sell at 1,200 and then it goes up to 1,300 and it never dips back below 1,200?
Exactly.
You missed out on the gain, and I think it's a fool's. People are easily fooled into believing that you can figure out where the peaks are.
Yeah.
You don't know where the peaks are until a year later.
I had an argument, not a discussion with my girlfriend when she saw how much it flew up, because and she's like, well, we talked about if something wasn't very organic and it flies up really fast. And I said, well, this is Tesla. I said, we don't touch Tesla. It's like there's like a holy thing about that. And she said, but it's insane how much it's gone up, she said. And I'm like, yes, it is going to drop, obviously, but and it might be dropping 20-30% sooner or later. But the question is it from where it's at now or from $1,500 or from $2,000? And I'm not going to take that risk because I wouldn't be able to sleep.
Yeah, I can't explain short-term stock price movements. There's a theory that, one theory that I heard that I thought was pretty good was that the bond rating went up. There's these credit rating agencies in America that increase Tesla's credit rating, the rating of their bonds, and that allows certain mutual funds, certain institutional investors can't invest in a company whose bond rating is below a certain level. So whenever Tesla gets an upgrade, that creates an increase in demand for the stock. That's a theory.
Yeah.
And actually, what's really striking about this is Tesla's quarterly profit is more. They make more money in profit in one quarter than they owe in long-term debt. So I'm trying to figure out why they don't have the highest credit rating, right? Because and they have something like $16 billion in cash and they owe $2 billion. So it's kind of puzzling why they don't have the highest credit rating. Like, it's obvious they can pay their debts.
Right.
But the credit rating agencies work that way. So that's one theory about it. But for me, I think the ultimate issue is it's hard to understand how the big Wall Street players think about stocks. But if they start to, I just told you stories about how we get to $8,000 a share, how we get to $80,000 a share, right?
Right.
If Wall Street, if the big money starts to see that story as more likely, then they start to recognize the stock is cheap and they start buying the stock.
Right.
And there's these big pools of money out there that can shift their investments from one stock to another, and they can. And so I think that they're starting to see the story. And it may only be 10% of Wall Street sees the story now. And so, saying it's not organic is sort of like, well, wait a minute. We don't know what drove the price increase. My gut is there's two things. There's this bond rating, there's this credit rating increase, which is total nonsense, right? Obviously, the credit rating should be the highest level at this point. And there's this idea that there are big investors on Wall Street and elsewhere who are starting to get the story. They've been getting a false story. This is the other thing. Instead of thinking the share price ran up unusually fast, you could think the share price was suppressed unusually long by wrong thinking about the company, and the misguided ideas are dying. And as the misguided ideas fall away, the share price rises towards its real natural value, which it still isn't close to in my view.
Yeah, it's
right?
like Rob from Tesla Daily. I think he said that in his latest video that the stock price right now it's really undervalued, from a long term perspective. And I
Well,
think
so
this,
if you think $8,000 a share or $10,000 a share is a good accurate value for 2030, which is 9 years away, and you do any kind of discounting, right? That's one of the things that people do say. Well, what would I pay for a stock that would be worth $10,000 in 9 years? And the answer is a hell of a lot more than $1,200,
exactly.
right? The answer is probably more like $3, $4, or $5,000, right? To get something that's going to double in 9 years, let's say.
Yeah.
That would be a pretty good investment, something that's going to double in 9 years. I mean, maybe you want triple in 9 years. Well, then you're at $3,000 or $3,300 a share. We're only at $1,200 a share, so we're still, basically a third of its fair value. And I think that 10,000 is the floor, right? 8,000 is the floor of where it goes. And, and you sort of have to ask yourself, okay, what gets in the way? What gets in the way of Tesla stock going up? Now, the one big thing I can see getting in the way, and we're seeing it in Berlin right now, and we're seeing it in the American government with President Biden right now, is government deciding they don't like Tesla.
Yeah,
Right? Government
that
having
was so.
some kind of issue with Tesla. You've grown too big. We have to break you up. You have this issue. You have that issue. Or we're favoring unions and we don't like that Tesla's using non-union labor, or this bizarre bureaucratic dance in Berlin over approving the factory for producing cars, which makes absolutely no sense from any reasonable perspective. Like, when you consider the net benefit of producing 2 million cars a year that don't pollute versus whatever environmental consequence you think there might be from this factory being there, right? There's no way that the non-polluting vehicles don't win that argument, right? There's, that removing all this diesel fumes and gasoline fumes from the air. There's no way that doesn't win the argument, but Germany's bureaucracy is hopeless.
Yeah.
So, is this because they just started another review. Is this the last round, or are they going to do it again? Right. And at what point do the German people and the European people say enough is enough? We want our clean air.
Yeah.
Right. Do you want clean? I think, do you live in Europe?
I live in Sweden.
Okay. So you have a lot of electric vehicles, but you would have a lot better access to Model Y if Berlin was producing vehicles. Yeah. And there are parts of Europe that probably don't have the cleanest air. No. It's a much bigger problem in China. I don't think it's as bad in Europe as it was,
Poland and Hungary. My girlfriend's from Poland. Hopes she's not going to listen to this. But Poland is one of the worst countries in Europe when it comes to, because they do use a lot of coal still.
Yeah, but even on the streets of, say, Paris or London, a bus goes by and you get a gulp of diesel fumes. It happens all the time to people in any city, anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And if we can shift to more EVs, to end up taking more gasoline-powered vehicles off the road. Sometimes the air isn't clean and we don't see it and we don't smell it, but it's there.
Yeah.
But our air quality isn't as good as it could be. Even if you took all the diesel off the road, the gasoline-powered vehicles are still polluting the air, and so the benefit of that is so huge. But we're seeing, and I don't want to get too political here, but we are seeing in many ways in society. And Sweden is probably a good example of a country that got it right on certain public health issues that we probably don't want to dive into. But globally, in a lot of countries, we can see that government is not following what the people want. No. We just had an election in Virginia, which seems to be a reflection that the people aren't happy with what government is doing, and there are still places that are ignoring the message from the voters.
Yeah.
And I personally think democracy is a sham. We don't really have democracy. We have government as its own special interest.
I've said that for a long time. I can't teach that in school though, or I try to keep that low key when we're talking about election times every time. And I'm a history teacher and a social studies teacher. And but for me, I've always said that, like you said, this is not democracy. Not as long as we have lobbying going on and that's legal. I can't see this as a democratic process the way our governments are run here in the West, anyways.
Well, I mean, there's so many different angles to that. But the point, getting back to Tesla, is, Toyota and Volkswagen are not a threat to Tesla. Lucid Motors, just started delivering cars. And for those who don't know, I'm the world's biggest Lucid Motors critic. But they did deliver a few cars. Lucid Motors, on their own projections, is not a threat to Tesla. Selling $100,000 plus cars is not a threat to a car company that makes $50,000 cars,
No.
right? There's no apparent threat to Tesla growing other than Tesla's own ability to grow its production and achieve its own goals. Tesla's the only resistance to Tesla's success is Tesla's ability to overcome the challenges it faces, except government. That we have. I don't know whether you have these voices in Europe. We have these voices in America. They are loud. As Tesla stock grows, Elon's wealth grows. So Elon is now worth over $300 billion US.
Yeah.
And there are these voices like Robert Reich and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Elizabeth Warren who get angry, and Bernie Sanders who get angry that one man has so much wealth. It's like, well, he's delivering, he's saving, these are the people who talk about saving the environment, right? These are people who are concerned about climate change. No one is doing more to reduce CO2 emissions. And I'm not saying I'm personally motivated about CO2 emissions. I'm motivated about pollution generally. No one is doing more to reduce CO2 emissions and reduce pollution than Elon Musk and his companies. No one is doing more to reduce the cost of access to space than Elon Musk. All the governments in the world talk about doing these things and fail. And Elon Musk came along and created two companies that are doing that. He's got a company, the Boring Company, that is going to solve traffic problems. It's already solving traffic problems. It's going to solve more traffic problems and reduce noise pollution and air pollution as well, because the vehicles are going to be underground, right? So he's doing that. He's working on curing brain disease. All the government officials in the world talk, oh, we've got to cure cancer, but they didn't do anything. They took your money, they took my money, they gave it to some bureaucrat somewhere who ended up wasting it on something that didn't solve the problem. And Elon Musk is solving the world's problems, and they're angry. I call it the radical left, and the radical left hates nothing more than success. The one thing they hate more than, because when someone is successful, it shows their limitations. It shows that they're not actually delivering value to people. This guy over here, even Jeff Bezos, who, like a lot of people who are Elon Musk fans, they hate Jeff Bezos. I'm not happy with Jeff Bezos right now, but the practical reality is when I want to buy something, instead of having to drive to a store and pollute on the way and pollute on the way back. I mean, I have a Tesla now, so I don't really pollute on the way back there and back anymore. Instead of having to take my time and go to some store and wander around a store and try to find the product, I go on Amazon and it's at my door in 2 days, sometimes one day, sometimes the same day.
Yeah.
And he delivered, I think it's hundreds of millions of people have better shopping experiences in life because of what Jeff Bezos did. And Bernie Sanders didn't do that, and Angela Merkel didn't do that.
No.
And no politician made that happen. Somebody who put ridiculous number of hours and risked a ridiculous amount of their own personal wealth made that happen.
Sure. And that's
that's capitalism. Capitalism makes life better for people. Government talks about making life better for people, but actually does not.
I think it's funny also because I'm a little like, I'm not sure if I've said this the right word. Normally, I've been inspired by Shamat a lot. But regarding what happened with the whole Tesla thing, and I just feel like we need more information on what's been going on there. But he said something in the All In podcast, he and the crew there, regarding that would be better to have entrepreneurs maybe, steering society right instead and making the choices. And people who are actually into this science. Because I don't know what's happened in the last 20, 30 years, but it just seems like a lot of politicians, when it comes to their education within these different fields, same in Sweden when it comes to me as a teacher, the people who normally take care of the, education within school, the Minister of Education here. It's a long story, and we shouldn't. That was actually one of when I asked the subscribers, to what kind of questions they had for you in the end. They said, just don't go into politics, and I guess I do that now. All right.
But it's a hard reality. Yeah. If you ask yourself this question, who has done more for the environment over the past 10 years? Elon Musk, or choose your politician. Show me a politician who has done more for cleaning the air than Elon Musk. Yeah. I don't think you can.
What about Greta?
And with Greta is not a politician, and
True.
I don't think she's actually achieved anything. But that's a long conversation. She didn't produce an electric vehicle that cleaned the air. She just talks.
True.
Right? She's motivating. She's interesting, but she talks.
Yeah.
when she starts a company that makes something that, when she makes windmills, when she makes solar panels, when she delivers something that actually changes things rather than just talking, okay.
Yeah.
But show me a politician who actually delivered meaningful change on cleaning the air more than Elon Musk. And we've given, people complain about how much money Elon Musk has. We give a lot more money to governments than we give to Elon, right? And we give the money to Elon because he gives us a car.
Yeah.
Right? The government takes our money whether we like it or not. Yeah. Elon can't go to our bank and draw money from our bank. He can't send men with guns to make us pay our taxes. Right? We give him our money because he's giving us something in return, and in the process, we're creating cleaner air. Yeah. Right? So, people complain about, he has $300 billion. The American government spends $6 trillion a year. Are we getting cleaner air for that? No.
And that's actually one of my questions when we get into Beyond Meat, like which company or which sectors will have the most profound impact on sustainability long term. So, but I guess if we then move into, this whole Beyond Meat thing then, which is, what do you like about the company? Do you have a bull case for Beyond Meat?
I don't know if I've modeled it in that way. I think it was more if you go back to my channel and watch my video with Mayor. I think he modeled it really well. Yeah. What I like about it is I watched the CEO. I want to say his name's
Ethan Brown.
Ethan Brown. I also watched a video with the founder of Impossible Foods,
Pat Brown.
I watched a video with, and they're not related, even though their last names are the same. I don't think they're related. And I watched a video with, I think it's the CEO of Memphis Meat, and I see the same pattern with all of them. We've come up with a way of producing meat. Don't say it's not meat; it's meat. I've eaten it. I have Beyond products in my freezer. Right, I have a Beyond breakfast sausage in my freezer right now. I just had Beyond burgers recently.
Nice.
We have come up with a way of producing meat that uses less land, less water, and less energy.
Yeah.
It doesn't use blood. It doesn't use urine. There's no blood, urine. And I love the way, I think Ethan Brown says it this way. Maybe Pat Brown says it this way too. People say, well, it's processed food. It's like, okay, animal-based meat is processed food. What you do is you take grains and vegetables, you feed them to an animal, and the animal's body physiology processes that vegetable matter into meat.
Yeah.
Right. But that process involves blood, it involves urine, it involves feces, it involves excessive use of antibiotics, it involves using a large amount of land, it involves insects. There's all kinds of things in the animal-based process that really aren't something you want in your food.
No.
Right. And then when you look at what Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods are doing, for one side, you can look at the lab-based meat in a different, or the cell-based meat in a different version. There's no blood, there's no urine, there's no feces, there's no antibiotic usage. There are insects probably in the fields when they're growing the plants, but once you get the plants out and you put them in the factory where you produce the meat, there's no insects involved. It's a much, much cleaner process for producing meat.
Yeah, so I thought I'd just show a slide here. I'm not sure. Have you seen Cowspiracy?
I don't think so.
And
I want to be clear, by the way, before I just want to say, I enjoy animal-based meats. I am not a vegan.
No, I know that.
I tell people that I had bacon yesterday, and they say, "Oh, you should eat healthy food." I say, "Bacon is good for my mental health."
But you also said that if they come up with a fake bacon, that you really enjoy, would
no. Whenever there's a plant-based meat product that's comparable to meat and close in price, I'm buying the plant-based product.
Yeah.
Whether it's Beyond or Impossible, and we should briefly touch on cell-based meat. I don't know if you're comfortable talking about that, because cell-based meat doesn't satisfy the vegan principle because the cells come from an animal. But it's the same idea that they take cells from an animal and they basically clone them.
I like the way it's done today, because today it's much more animal friendly to some extent, and it might be some vegans who would hate me for saying that, but I think that's still the much better choice than actually killing the animal. You had to do that in the beginning, I think, when it was early days in these in this research. But today, yeah, you basically can take a feather or something like that, and then
They take
create.
a cell from inside the cheek, whatever. They take a cell from the animal without killing it.
Yeah,
And they take cells from animals without killing them, and then they're able to clone the cells. And in a lab, they're able to produce meat.
yeah,
And they just grow more and more cells. Now, I don't know the fundamentals of how that process works, but I know it doesn't involve blood, it doesn't involve urine, it doesn't involve feces, it doesn't involve insects. It even involves less insects than plant-based meat, right? Because there's no insects anywhere in the process. So again, you have a very, very sound process, and again, you use a lot less land, you use a lot less water, and you use a lot less energy.
yeah,
And the savings in water and land in particular, I believe, are really, really dramatic. And then they're improving the technology all the time. So as the technology improves, I think, you end up creating even better examples of how this all leads to, if you're using less water, using less land, using less energy, in the long run, it should cost less. And it's just a matter of improving the technology and scaling it. And then
yeah,
you're going to get to lower cost meat that's better for you
exactly. And
and
that's
doesn't kill animals and doesn't take. And now you've freed up a lot of land and you've eliminated a lot of pollution. There's a tremendous amount of water pollution that comes from like chicken farms and pig farms. There's all kinds of ways that there's pollution that's coming from animal-based agriculture,
yeah,
and we can get out of that. And not to say that there's no consequences from plant-based meat agriculture, but it's a lot less.
yeah.
It's a lot better.
It's funny how they usually, over the years, I get attacked for eating tofu because it's made by soybeans, and they're like, "Well, your deforestation is your fault because they're growing soybeans in South America." I have a slide here where it shows deforestation and several other things.
Oh, animal-based agriculture is massively responsible for deforestation.
Exactly. It's about 91% of the Amazon is because of animal agriculture. And yes, it's true that they grow soybeans, and that's part of it, small part of it. But those soybeans normally aren't used to make tofu. It's made to sent to the U.S., to Europe to feed cows and cattle, to make them grow even more. So it's a really huge misunderstanding of how to use these resources.
I just want to mention real quick, you mentioned bacon. I would say, I think the real target for Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods, and and maybe it's cell-based, is if they can deliver sashimi grade fish, right? Because that's high priced.
Right.
But if you can deliver sashimi grade fish, to me, that's, number one, we have all kinds of issues with overfishing in the seas, right? So you're addressing a serious environmental problem. But, when you're trying to attack ground beef, right, or ground pork, they're very inexpensive meats. Chicken is a very inexpensive meat. But if you can deliver some of the nicer grades of sashimi, of fish, that you can eat raw, if they can deliver that, and not just raw, but even cooked, if you can deliver, because I think fish tends to be more expensive, right? If you can deliver, and particularly the higher grades, like I think the pitch for Beyond Meat is we're not competing with regular meat, we're competing with Wagyu, we're competing with higher grades of meat.
Yeah.
So the price when you go, when you want to buy sashimi, it's very, very expensive meat.
Yeah.
So I think they should be able to deliver, whether it's cell-based or plant-based, when they cross that bridge, that's going to be a huge lever for massive growth.
There is actually one company now that's going to IPO soon called New Wave Foods, and their whole thing is plant-based fish foods, and I think it's based on algae and different water vegetation. So it's supposed to be really good, but I haven't tried it yet. But the interesting thing is, maybe you know that already, Beyond Meat has, I think in the last half year, registered trademarks for like 109 different products now. And fish and shrimp is part of it, and dairy, milk, there's going to be the Beyond Milk. So I think in that way, I think if anyone can actually make the most similar to the real thing, it would be them, considering that they use about 200 researchers that focus solely on this. And I don't know of any other company that use so much research.
If I can just touch on why I think Beyond Meat is special. It's because I'm a crazed Elon Musk fan, right? And one of I sell T-shirts related, from my channel
Yeah.
on the website. The website is elonbits.com. If anybody wants to buy T-shirts, one of my favorite T-shirts right now is it's elonbits.com.
Oh,
One of
it's
my favorite T-shirts is "Innovate with Extreme Urgency." Elon was talking to Tim Dodd from Everyday Astronaut at Starbase, and he talked about we have to innovate with extreme urgency. And I went to Starbase, Texas. I went to the southern tip of Texas to see where they're building the Starship. And
yeah.
I went to the Tesla Gigafactory in Austin, and I've been to Tesla Fremont. And it's really started to hit me that the culture of Elon Musk's companies is you have to innovate with extreme urgency. And I think Ethan Brown and Beyond Meat get that.
Mm.
And I wonder about the idea of coming up with so many different products and whether it's a distraction from delivering some core products, because Tesla does a few products really well, right? But I'm not going to fault Ethan Brown. I think they're trying different things, and you can throw 100 products out there and maybe only 10 of them click.
Yeah.
But if you only threw 10 products out there, maybe only 4 of them would click.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, but I think they are. I think that's one of the things I like about Beyond Meat is I think they are innovating with extreme urgency.
Yeah.
And it's rare to see companies that innovate with extreme urgency, and that is something you really want to invest in. If you see a company that you believe, these guys are really into it, they're really going all in, they're really trying to achieve something special.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a feel, but when you go to the southern tip of Texas and you see how hard they're working,
Yeah.
right? The contractors, the outside contractors, are working 12-hour days, 7 days a week. Okay, just that's the guys who aren't SpaceX employees. The SpaceX employees are working 15, 16 plus hours a day. Elon has been working like 19 hours a day for the last 30 years.
Yeah, he sleeps at the factory every now and then, doesn't he?
He sleeps on the factory floor. He's got a little place he sleeps at Starbase. That is a commitment to, we have to, if we want to achieve these goals, we have to innovate with extreme urgency. And I find it inspiring and I want to invest in it. And I'm trying to change my life so I can emulate it and start up my own companies that will also innovate with extreme urgency. And I'm not at extreme urgency yet, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. But what I agree with here is also, like you said, I do see some similarities with Ethan Brown and Elon Musk, and they have the same view, not only the same vision for changing the planet, and that being the most important question to solve, right? And the misunderstanding, again, like you were talking about, that people think that Beyond Meat is targeting the vegan population, which he really is, and he's targeting the 1 point. Yeah,
totally the opposite.
Yeah,
they don't put their, because I shop in American stores and I buy Beyond Meat. The products are not in the vegan section.
exactly.
The products are in the meat. Their focus is put these products in the meat section.
Yeah,
we're not selling vegan food, and vegans don't particularly want burgers, right? Vegans don't want fake shrimp.
that depends
right?
if we're talking about older vegans. I think my experience is that the ones who are turning vegan the last maybe 4 or 5 years. I've been vegan for about 10 years, and I was vegetarian for 10 years before that. When I started out, it was really hard to find things. You had to go to the tofu, you had to eat the lentils, and there were some burgers here and there, but they weren't really good. Nothing comparable to Beyond Meat. But I've noticed the last couple of years, and people ask that question often. Well, if you're vegan, why do you eat meat products then? I mean, why fake meats? Why? That doesn't make sense at all. Like a hot dog, like a burger. And for me, I don't resonate with that idea, because let's face it, a burger or a sausage, that's not natural. You don't see that in nature. It doesn't grow on a tree like a burger tree or something like that, even though if that might be cool. But the thing is, I think, like, if we go from a historical point of view and a biological point of view, archaeologists, there's quite a lot of research that would suggest that we began out as form of fruitarians. Well, I mean, we're talking really long back now, like millions of years. And if that would have continued to some extent, I imagine that if we didn't have to eat meat and have more food at one point, we would have to try to develop different things, right? So
I think the key point there is vegans are a small market. Meat eaters are a big market.
Yeah.
Ethan Brown isn't playing for the small market of vegans and vegetarians. He's playing for the big market of meat eaters, and that's a really smart move
Yep.
on his part. And that's why the company has potential value. If he said, we want to make the best vegan products and attract the best the vegans to eat it, you're not going to persuade the mass market. You're not going to achieve the scale that he's trying to achieve. And so I think that's really, and same thing with Impossible Foods, by the way. It's not just Ethan Brown.
No.
So I think that's really smart.
And I think, and also, like you said, because you're an mayor, you talked about that there's a 140 million opportunity, a billion in the next decade when it comes to plant-based food. Actually, there's new numbers now coming out more and more from Bloomberg and I think Credit Suisse. It's more like maybe 161 billion. But yeah,
it's much bigger. No, look. Let's suppose there's a billion people in the world who can afford to buy meat.
Yep.
And the average person spends $1,000 a year on meat. That's $1 trillion market.
Yeah.
I mean, how much? I look at how much do I spend on food, right? And I really think it's more than a billion people, right? It's really there's 8 billion people on the planet.
Yeah.
Right. So if you take 8 billion people and you figure let's go with 5 billion because it's an easier number to work with, and you figure the average person spends $200 a year on meat.
Yeah.
Right. You're already at $1 trillion.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think $200 on meat is that big of a number. Right. I mean, I'm sure I spend more than $200 a year on meat.
For sure.
I mean, bacon is like $8 a pound. Right. I have like, I don't know, 6 pounds of bacon in the freezer because I bought a bunch of bacon when I got a discount.
We're gonna have to urge the Beyond Meat to make that fake bacon soon because I want to keep you around here. I mean, you're gonna have to enjoy all that money.
So I don't agree with the idea that bacon is fundamentally unhealthy. It depends. If you eat bacon every day and you eat like a half pound of bacon a day, that's probably unhealthy.
Yeah.
If you have a few strips of bacon a few times a week, I don't think that's particularly unhealthy.
Probably not. So,
and especially if you have it as a supplement, if you put it on top of your Beyond Burger. I order Beyond Burgers with bacon. When I go to restaurants, there's a restaurant called the BurgerFi here that serves Beyond Burgers. And I say, I'll have a Beyond Burger with bacon. And like, people are puzzled, but I like bacon. I like Beyond Burgers.
Exactly.
What's the problem?
but
if you think of it as just another food, instead of trying to think this is a special food, it's just food.
Yeah. But that's why I think it's really important that a person like you who is a meat eater, who loves eating meat, if you start talking even more about Beyond Meat and the plant-based sector, it's going to probably affect even more because I think already I have against me that I am a vegan. And it's like, oh, of course he's biased. He is, but if you're walking in both worlds and you can see both of it, I think that's great. And
I agree with you that fundamentally we need to move away from eating animal-based meat. If Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods, and maybe the cell-based meats as well, if they can deliver enough, because they don't have the manufacturing capacity to supply the world with meat.
No.
Right? They need to grow. Yeah. They need to improve their tech and they need to scale. But as that happens, same thing. Look, I've been talking about Tesla since 2006. Well, 2019, I've been making videos, but I've been excited about Tesla for 6 or 7 years. I just bought a Tesla a couple months ago, right? I've been driving around a gasoline car all this time. I still occasionally drive gasoline cars. It doesn't mean I don't want to transition to what's better for the environment and better for humanity and better in many ways. So, it's going to take time. And, I still like, pepperoni pizza and, bacon double cheeseburger or whatever, and baby back ribs, smoked baby back ribs and smoked salmon, all that stuff. I still like it.
And that's the solution, right? Because the solution isn't to get people to start. It's the first thing you learn as a vegan if you want to have people around you, because majority of my friends and family members obviously are meat eaters. And that's the first thing you learn as a vegan. Do not invite people to your home who are not vegans and introduce lentils or beans or vegetables, and that's it. Now I'm half Indian, so I love lentils and dal. But maybe most people, if they're an avid meat eater, that's not their go-to food, right? When they're going to people, right? So I always try to make it as meaty as possible, the food, when they come here, and then eventually I'll make them some traditional Indian dishes and I'll add coconut milk to make it a little more fattening and rich, and people love it. And it's the same thing. Like, I would obviously want to see the world start eating more whole foods, plant based. I mean, eating more broccoli and eating more lentils and beans and so on. But that's not the reality we live in. So we have to solve the problem. We have to make a product that actually applies to anyone who loves eating a real burger, bacon, right? Fish, chicken alternatives, which we could talk more about later also. And when you solve that problem, I think we've solved most of the problems when it comes to sustainability. Because Elon has he's taking one avenue of it, and Ethan Brown and Pat Brown is taking the other avenue, which I actually believe is actually a bigger, something that has a more profound impact on sustainability long term.
Well, certainly in terms of land use,
yeah,
and like water pollution, I think you're right. I think in terms of air pollution, probably cows produce a lot of methane. Animal agriculture produces a lot. But I think it's like, it doesn't have to be one's bigger than the other. They're bigger in different spheres. I don't know if I can talk really briefly. I am starting up one company. I've already started working on one, and I'm going to start up a second company. I'm inspired by what Elon has done, and I'm inspired by these other guys. And I want to start up two companies. One to make a small electric vehicle designed from the get-go for self-driving, which I call a pod car. I have another name for it down the road. And then I want to create what I call solar farm apartments, where there's a huge house. I don't know what housing is like in Sweden. There's a huge housing shortage in America. In certain parts of America, it's very hard to find.
Here too, actually.
Young people have to pay a lot of money for an apartment. There's all kind of reasons for that. And I have this vision of building this purpose-built apartments where the roof is all solar. It's a 30, 60, 90 right triangle. So the floor is 40 feet long. The wall is 24 feet high, and then it's a 46 foot. And I'm sorry, I'm not using meters, but a 46 foot, which is probably 15 meter roof that basically each apartment, the roof generates 18 kilowatts, and it's an 800 square foot, which is an 80 square meter apartment.
So self-reliance, and
it actually produces more electricity than the apartment uses, and you use the excess electricity for maybe powering your robo-taxi fleet, or maybe you're serving the grid. And I think so a typical apartment here in America might be, let's say, $1,500 a month. For a decent apartment. It depends on where you are in America. The prices are very, very variable depending on where you are. Some places
$1,500?
$1,500 US dollars a month. Yeah.
Whoa.
And it could be a lot more. It can be less. Yeah. But I think I can deliver apartments for $800 a month, make a healthy profit, and give them free electricity because we're generating electricity from the roof. Maybe give them free Starlink antennas, Starlink internet service, and give them low-cost robo-taxi rides to where they want to go. And now imagine a world where you don't have to own a car, and you can live in your apartment for $800 a month, and you can go to your job, and while you're commuting to work, you don't have to worry about driving, and you just play on your phone while you're in the vehicle. Can we create a much more sustainable lifestyle for young people who are struggling to make a living that frees up their income so they can save more? Right. So they can invest in Tesla. They can invest in Beyond Meat. They can invest in some startup company. They can, take their free time and use their extra capital to build something. So I have these ideas, and I think I see what Elon did when they sold PayPal and he had all this money. He didn't buy a yacht and sit on the back of the yacht and sip drinks. He did buy a nice car, but he didn't buy it. He doubled down and put that money into something. And now that I've earned a lot on my Tesla stock, I feel like it's my job to pay it forward and let me try to start something up. And look, 95% chance each business fails, right? But what the hell? What am I going to do? Why don't I throw my money into that and take a shot?
I love that.
So I think that's actually a big message I have for anybody who's been successful with Tesla stock is if you made your money because Elon doubled down and innovated with extreme urgency and committed himself to this, ask yourself, what am I doing with this money? Am I just going to buy a boat and sit on the back of the boat and sip drinks? Or do I have any? Not everybody has this in them, right? But do I have it in me? Can I see something where I can either invest the money in somebody else who has a business idea that's going forward? And I'm not looking for investment right now, by the way, but you see somebody who's got that vision. Can I contribute to that mission, or can I come up with my own? You know, for you, it might be, you know, we could do a better job of educating kids if we did this. I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying that's it.
Yeah.
But you could see some, you know, and if 1,000 of us achieve 1/100th of what Elon has achieved, then we're 10 Elons.
Yeah.
Right? So, and maybe there could be 10,000 of us that achieve 1,000th of what Elon has achieved. It's still 10 Elons. You know, can we go from 1 Elon to 10 Elons? Can we go from 1 Elon to 100 Elons?
Right.
Because 1 Elon is making the world a much better place. What if we had 10 Elons?
Yeah.
Right. And I don't mean 10 individual Elons. I want to be clear. I mean thousands of people trying to be a little bit of Elon.
Right.
And themselves, of course, not really just being, you know, a little bit of Elon.
Yeah.
In your own way, what can you do to make the world a better place?
Exactly. Wow, and I actually believe in that, paying it forward. And I think I know a lot of great investors out there. I think Warren Buffett is one of them. He's given profound. I mean, he probably would be one of the number one today. I think if it wasn't all the billions he's given away over the years.
So I want to be clear about that. I'm not saying what can I do in terms of giving my money to somebody else.
You want to solve something.
Whatever Warren Buffett has given his money to, it hasn't changed the world as much as Elon has.
True.
So it's, to me, it's what can capitalism is look, you don't want me to get political, but capitalism is the answer.
Go.
Elon is showing that capitalism is the answer to the world's problems. There's a lot of things that we want to achieve for humanity, and Elon is achieving them through capitalism.
Yep.
And you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, and I'm not saying it's bad to give your money to charity, but you know, will that money achieve as much as if you invested in Beyond Meat or a meat startup, and it could be something you and I haven't even thought of, right? You know, what are some other areas? I was going to mention. I'm sorry. I had this other thought I don't want to lose because we were talking about Beyond Meat, and you know, could they make a bacon? Could they make shrimp? Could they make smoked salmon? Whatever. We haven't even touched on the possibility that they're going to create some new meat product that didn't exist before that's even better. Right?
Yeah, I remember you talking about that in another...
I don't know if I have talked about that. I think there's potential for... If you read science fiction,
yeah,
right? Some science fiction, there's like some other thing out there that people are eating that doesn't even exist. Like we limit ourselves to, could they make a better burger, or could they make a better bacon, or could they make better sashimi? What if they came up with a meat product that was just amazing, that didn't correlate to an existing world meat product?
Yeah.
What if, you know? And I'm not saying I know what that is, but I bet they're working on it.
But that would be like more of a sensory experience, right? And much more enjoyable, and hopefully that would be a more healthy alternative too. So you get that whole spectrum of it, and obviously then if Beyond Meat would be part of it, or Pat Brown. I mean, also better for the planet. So I think that would probably be a 100-bagger.
You know, imagine you go to a fancy cocktail party and somebody comes around serving hors d'oeuvres, and they're like, "What's this?" And they say some magical name that you like, and you eat it, and it's like, it's got this really nice texture, and it's got this really nice flavor, and like, what is that? Oh, it's this Beyond. It's Beyond Food. Right? You know, it's you know, I can't think of what the name would be, but you come up with creative names for it that reflect how it feels and tastes in your mouth, but it doesn't correlate to an existing animal product. And you can imagine that being an amazing cocktail party, right?
Exactly.
I want to go to that cocktail party.
I find that really interesting that you say that, because that gets me to speculate about what they could create in the future. Because we're thinking about food all the time, but like Elon Musk, when starting with Tesla, then I'm not sure what order now, but then Neuralink and SpaceX and Starlink and the Boring Company. I mean, they're to some extent they could be interconnected, right? But it's not like SpaceX and having rocket ships flying to Mars, and a car is definitely what you think about being in the same sector, right? And I imagine, haven't thought about that regarding Beyond Meat then, or Impossible Food, that with time, what else could they actually start producing that could benefit us? Because if you have the vision already and you're always working on it, you're always trying to be entrepreneurial, right? Coming up with new ideas, solving problems. Because I don't think legacy companies usually solve problems or are even trying. They just want to keep what they got, right? And they're always afraid of trying to move on to the next thing because they might lose out on what they already have, which is limiting, of course. And that's why they're not really going anywhere. So
I guess the thing is, if you don't come up with innovations that destroy your existing business, then someone else will.
yeah.
So you need to constantly innovate to improve your business and come up with new businesses that threaten your own business. Because if you don't come up with that innovation, somebody else will, and you'll lose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, but it's really interesting. It's hard to wrap your head around. I would just say to people who are thinking about innovating, like, look around the world around you. What is something you see that could be done better? I mean, like, here's just an off the cuff example: the way we handle garbage, right? We probably could handle garbage better. I don't know what the answer is to how to handle garbage, but we could probably handle garbage better. The way we handle sewage, like my solar farm apartments, my plan is to use incinerator toilets instead of regular toilets, because the way we dispose of human waste is, generally speaking, not that great.
Yeah.
You know, we have sewer systems and we do okay with it, but it's not really that great. And if we burned the waste and we have free electricity from the roof, basically, we could burn the waste. And then can we come up with a better incinerator toilet? But that's just an example. Like there's so many different aspects of human life that could be done better. And I can't tell you what you should innovate on. I can mention education because you know it, but you may have something else that you're thinking of. But for anybody out there who's watching, what do you see in the world that could be done better? And how could you make that happen? And can you get? And I call it getting off the couch. You know, we're all sitting on the couch watching the soccer, the football match, right, and drinking a beer and eating a snack. It's like, what would get you off the couch?
Yeah.
What would you get you off the couch? Because I watch almost zero television now. When I'm eating my meal, I watch sports highlights for 10 minutes, and then I'm back up. And, you know, what would get you off the couch to start doing something?
Right.
And, you know, if only 0.1% of the people in the world get off the couch, right, that's a huge change for society.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it gives you purpose also, because that's the thing. Me and my girlfriend talked about that yesterday. Like, really, I mean, our goal is partly to become financial free so we can do something else with our lives that we really, you know, burn for, you know, that we're passionate about. But that's important, I think, to have our idea already now, maybe, or within a couple of years anyway, so we don't just become financially free and get depressed. Because if you don't have the purpose of what you're doing, and I think giving something to others and creating something, that makes sense. Something that the Okinawans talk about, called ikigai, having a purpose to go up in the morning and doing something that's more than about you. I really like that idea. So, but if we, I'm thinking here, just for the subscribers, a bear case then for Beyond Meat in itself. What would that be according to you?
Well, the bear case is they're not able to get to the point where they're able to deliver. Like, I think it looks like they're going to be able to significantly lower the cost of their product over time. Yeah. They're going to be able to scale and produce more, and they're going to be able to lower the cost of it. The bear case is they're not. The bear case is that they can't. You know, let's say in America right now, let's say it costs, I'm making up the number, let's say it's $10 a pound for a Beyond Meat burger meat, right? And I can buy burger meat for $2.99 a pound.
Yeah.
Right? If they can't get below $8 a pound, the market size becomes very constrained, right? So I think the bear case is it's not going to grow.
Yeah.
Right? That, you know, we have bought stock. You know, for me, it was not a big investment. But, you know, I bought stock in Beyond Meat. I think I'm down significantly from when I bought. But it's if they do not achieve scale, if they're not able to grow, then, you know, we basically lose our money. The bear case is they don't succeed.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're not established like Tesla's. They don't have like big profits coming in. So, you know, Tesla's bear case is no longer they go bankrupt, because bankruptcy is already out.
I think that that's the thing, that when it comes to Beyond Meat, I think normally I don't listen too much to analysts, but an analyst, I think Luke Lango at Investor Place, he talked about where Beyond Meat is today is where Tesla was 10 years ago, basically solving equally as important problem, but they really haven't started,
No, I think they're less than 10 years. I think that I don't know how far they are from I don't even know like whether they're profitable or not yet.
No,
I
they're
think
not. They're not profitable. They're talking about 22, 23 being able to start becoming profitable. Then
that's only a few years behind Tesla. Then I mean, if they because Tesla only recently achieved profitability.
Yeah.
Right. It was only like 2020, I think, that they became profitable.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a good chance they become profitable by say 2023. But if you get to 2024, 2025, and they haven't become profitable and they continue to lose money, and are they going at some point? And the other hurdle for any company that's not there yet is when a crisis hits and you run out of cash, will you be able to raise money to fund your continued efforts to get there?
Yeah.
So if a financial crisis hits, and I think there's always a risk of another financial crisis, if a financial crisis hits, you may not be able to get funding.
Yes.
So, we had a crisis, this public health crisis, and it should have been difficult for companies to raise money, but the government's pumped a lot of money into the economy, and in sort of this perverse result, a lot of companies that probably shouldn't be able to raise money have raised a lot of money. So, fortunately for Beyond Meat, they've had access to capital. I don't know if they've had to do a funding round or not, but they could do a funding round.
They actually now, and I think it was in March, April, they raised another by debt, another $1 billion. So they have a cash balance of $1 billion now sitting ready there. They're not using very much at the moment, which I feel like that could get them going in the next 10 years if they had to. But
I just think if they're able to turn profitable by, let's say, 2023, then it's good. But if they aren't able to become profitable for there's various things that could come up. We have another public health crisis and the restaurants close, and the restaurants are a big part of their business.
Yeah.
Right. Because Ethan Brown talked about how the restaurants are sort of curators. They're able to show people.
Yeah.
They can get the staff to show people, this is our special burger, you should try this, and that gets more people aware of the product. I think the first few times I had Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods, it was Burger King, believe it or not, is the first place I had Impossible Foods, and I only order the Impossible Whopper if I go to Burger King. I don't order an animal-based meat at Burger King, because honestly, whenever I have the option, if I go to BurgerFi, which is this burger chain, I don't order a beef burger anymore. I order the Beyond Burger.
Yeah, well, that's perfect.
I might get bacon on it, but I order the Beyond Burger, so at least the bulk of it. Yeah. So I think that there's that. So there are potential problems along the way that could impair their ability to grow and achieve profitability, and that's the bear case: is that they can't achieve profitability, and then the funding dries up, and they can't raise money, and they go bankrupt. Yeah. That is unfortunately the bear case for an early stage company, and they're beyond early stage, but they're still middle stage. They're still at risk.
Yeah.
Once they start turning a profit, I think it's game over. They win.
It's kind of like escape velocity. That
yes.
So that's how I see it, because they're placing out they're building more and more facilities now. They have 2 facilities in China. I think they have 2 facilities in the Netherlands and Europe, and then 2 facilities in the US. And
I think they may hit escape velocity by the end of this year, early next year, by the end of 2022 or early 2023. And that's when it really starts to take off. And, for me, like, should I buy more stock in Beyond Meat? Well,
at this price,
I just know. For me, it's that I know Tesla, and my optimistic projection of Tesla. So it's hard for me to justify buying stock in anything else. But I bought a little bit of Beyond Meat because I like the concept.
Yeah.
I bought a little bit of Hertz because I think the Hertz deal has really, really strong prospects for Hertz succeeding. I don't think either of those investments is likely to outperform Tesla, but I'm diversifying into different long shots.
Yeah, understandable. So your way of hedging it.
Yeah, I'm hedging.
But I think
here's what I joke. I joke that I'm diversified because I own Tesla in 3 different accounts.
So I guess different averages then, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the bear case for most people either is Impossible Foods, which I don't agree with because first of all, Pat Brown has talked about that. He doesn't see Beyond Meat as the competition. They're basically on the same track, right?
They're on
And
the same team.
yeah, so
Animal-based meat is the competition.
yeah, exactly.
Just like the Ford Mustang Mach-E and the Porsche Taycan are not competition for Tesla. They're competition for internal combustion engine vehicles.
Yeah.
These other EVs came on the scene. Tesla didn't lose a sale. It's the internal combustion engines that are losing the sales. If Impossible Foods succeeds and Beyond Meat succeeds, they don't eat each other's sales. They eat animal-based meat sales.
Yeah, exactly. So, but then I think the bigger one, which I can understand to a certain extent, and I think it's the same similarity with Tesla, is legacy food companies, right? The giants like Tyson Foods, that is worth about $43 billion and has about a revenue around the same. But they're not really growing if you compare it to Beyond Meat and other plant-based companies. But what's your thinking there when it comes to legacy food companies? That they'll go in and start making similar products.
I haven't looked closely at the plant-based meats from, say, Tyson Foods, so it may be that they succeed. But that's like Volkswagen making EVs. It doesn't take Tesla sales away. It takes Volkswagen internal combustion engine sales away. Yeah. So I hope they do it.
Yeah.
I want to see more plant-based meats. It's not bad if they do it, but the other thing I would say is, look, okay, so to some extent, like in burgers, maybe Impossible competes with Beyond, but you just said that Beyond Meat has introduced like 109 new products.
I mean, trademarks. Yeah, yeah.
It could certainly be that Impossible makes a better burger than Beyond, but Beyond makes a better chicken strip than Impossible.
Yeah.
That Memphis Meats makes a better tuna sashimi. Right? It could be that they all succeed in different niches, and it also could be that I like the Beyond Burger better than the Impossible Burger, but you like the Impossible Burger better. Right? Just like, I like this meat product and you like that meat whatever, the different foods are. I like Burger King, you like McDonald's. It doesn't have to be that they can both succeed in multiple ways. We don't. This idea that they're competing with each other is a myth. They're competing with, just like Tesla and other EVs are competing with internal combustion engines. Plant-based meat and cell-based meat are competing with animal agriculture.
Yeah,
that's the way forward. And the size, like if you were introducing an electric vehicle today, okay, and you said, I want to compete, I want to succeed, I want to take sales from somebody. Do you want to take sales from the 90 million internal combustion engine vehicles, or do you want to take sales from the 900,000 Tesla electric vehicles? Why would you try to take sales from the 900,000 when you could take sales from the 90 million?
Exactly.
Right. And that's and the same thing with Impossible and Beyond Meat. They are way smaller. Like, Tesla is, maybe less than 1% of global vehicle production. Maybe they are 1% of global vehicle production now. I think they're approaching 1% of global vehicle production. Mm-hmm. But Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods are like less than 1/10 of 1% of global meat production.
Definitely.
So there's 99.9% of the market out there, if not 99.99% of the market out there, to compete with. Why would we compete with the 0.1% of this other guy?
Yeah.
So that's a misunderstanding of what the market is. The market isn't plant-based meats versus plant-based meats. It's meat.
Yeah. And that's the argument, because these legacy food companies, obviously, they have bigger capital, way bigger capital, and they have a large distribution net. Like if they got the perfect product and they'll start to, get that going, then bye-bye Beyond Meat and Impossible. But I don't agree with that, because I see it basically the same as Tesla and the legacy company. Tesla worked on this product for about, 10 years, 12 years, and just focusing on this, if not even longer, with the ideas. And Beyond Meat has existed since 2009, I think. And they've been doing this like every day for 12 years now. And again, 200 researchers doing it. About 10 to 15% of their revenue is used to R&D. I looked at the numbers today. If they actually took away the R&D cost now, they would be plus minus zeros now, which obviously would be a dumb idea. But
as they scale production, the R&D will shrink as a percentage of their company, just the same as Tesla has.
Yeah.
Even though R&D will probably grow, the revenue will probably grow faster.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Whilst Tyson Food puts about 0.2% into R&D, and I don't think those 0.2% is specifically only for plant-based food. So,
Right.
so I think it's a harsh, maybe, but a ridiculous comparison that they would have the same kind of product anytime soon, because as of yet, with scalability or not, in the U.S. at least, Beyond Meat is still the number one plant-based product, no matter what other company has
So,
products.
and Impossible is probably number two.
Yeah, definitely number two. So that's why I don't see it. I mean, I don't see it in the next 10 years that they will catch up, because it's the same kind of paradox as legacy food company, car companies have when it comes to Tesla.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we talked about this, which will have the most profound impact on the planet. My argument has been, to some extent, obviously, I am biased, and I am, even though I love Tesla and I love Elon Musk, I still I see it this way, that everyone can drive a car, or many people can drive a car, but it's not depending on the situation or on where you live, of course, it's not an absolute necessity to have a car, right? Obviously, this will be different when the robotaxis and that starts going, but when it comes to food, everyone has to eat
We're all happy.
3 to 5 times a day, right? And when you get into that market, and when it comes to sustainability, and when it comes to health, and when it comes to the animals, that is going to be more and more important, because Gen Zs and millennials, they care way more about sustainability and their health than older generations. Probably not all of them, but okay, here we go again. It's Mowgli, my cat.
Oh, awesome.
Okay.
Does Mowgli eat vegan food?
I'm not sure if I can take that on this channel, but actually, I haven't dared to try that yet, because there is products that you could buy. I'm just gonna move him. He's cuddling with the screen, so he's always doing that. So there you go. So he always wants to be part of these videos or interviews.
Sure.
No, but where was
But
I?
I mean, there's another market, right? Plant-based or cell-based meats for pets.
Yeah, definitely. And they actually had that question for Ethan Brown in an interview, I think, a year ago. And he actually said that he found that interesting, because that's a huge market as well, of course. And so I could definitely see that. But
I think there's a lot of pet owners who would be motivated. I think the only question is, will the animals eat them?
well, my maybe they've been brainwashed. I have 2 cats, Holy Burmas, Mowgli and Aragon, and they're crazy about lentils and beans and chickpeas. So every time I make Indian food, they're like meowing like crazy and want that, and they're crazy about soy ice cream as well. So which is weird. Actually,
I have a dog. I'm sure my dog would eat Impossible Burgers.
Yeah, we have a dog too, and it actually Impossible, and it eats actually vegan food. But it was once actually made a whole stew, and my cat Aragon, when I wasn't watching, he jumped up, and then when I came back, he was lying in the stew like Garfield and eating it. So I had to throw that all away. But yeah, so off topic there. So. But so that's why I think Beyond Meat and Impossible has such a profound will have a profound impact on the planet, because it is where I see us going in the next 10 years. I think and that gets me to the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about. That's also one of the questions from the people, is subsidies, right? Because we're talking about tax credits and paying tax on using ordinary carbon and gas emissions. But subsidies, for me, in Sweden and the US and most of the West, I imagine, in the EU anyways, it's people misunderstand when they go and buy a McDonald's traditional burger, because they're like paying maybe, I don't know, everything from, you can get a burger I think for $2 or $3, but that's not the actual price what that costs to produce. But taxpayers, because of subsidies, we have to, whether we're vegan or not, we have to actually support that with taxes, which I feel is insanity, right? And I imagine that that's going to change with time, because the more, that's my vision anyways, because the more we see that the planet is going under to some extent, not the planet, for us to be able to live here anyway, the planet is going to be here for a couple of billion more years, but the more we see that, the more we understand that. And I don't think politicians are going to willingly be like, okay, we're going to support this, this makes sense, because first of all, many of them are in their 70s, 80s, don't really care, and they get supported by big agricultural companies and with lobbying and all that. So it's not in their interest. But when they notice that people, younger generations, aren't that interested in electing them, if they don't move with the paradigm, and also I do believe when people like Shamat maybe, who was normally before talking about investing in and things that actually is good for the planet, like Tesla then. When a lot of more venture capitalists are going to start putting their money and their billions and actually using their power maybe to start lobbying politicians as well, I see the subsidies actually moving away from meat.
I think there's more subsidies than you realize. I mean, I don't know what it's like in Europe. I know in America, in addition to the subsidies that farmers get, they also get tax breaks that people don't realize. So, for example, we pay property tax based on the value of our property, but agricultural property is not appraised in the same way. So they pay far lower property taxes than the real value of their property would indicate in a lot of places. There are a lot of special interests that have influence over government. Farmers are one of them. Farmers in America have projected an image of these hardworking, poor people who are just struggling to get by, when the average farmer is, very wealthy. The average farmer owns, let's say, 1,000 acres and, has, $10 million in assets, right? But they wear blue jeans, denim blue jeans, and they, a flannel shirt, and they look, the Maseratis in the garage in the back, but they project, and they drive around in an old pickup truck and they make it look a certain way. They have great PR. Everyone thinks the farmers are doing this to make America great, and nobody realizes that the farmers and the ranchers are making an incredible amount of money, and they're very successful. And not to say that there aren't some that struggle, but by and large, they're very successful. We have here in Florida politics is dominated somewhat by what's known as big sugar. There's a lot of sugar production here in Florida, and they pollute the air like unbelievably badly. And they pollute the water, and they get away with it because they have tremendous influence over politicians. Yeah. And it's like, we don't really live in a democracy, right? We live in a fake democracy. Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of things like that. I don't think it's likely to change. I don't think the generations are going to change that, because the millennials become, middle-aged, right? They reach 50, and then they care about when you're young, you get to say you care about the environment. And when you get older and you have to raise your kids and you have to pay bills, all of a sudden, all that environmental stuff falls by the wayside. A really good example of this is here in Florida. We drop our kids off at school, and we pick our kids up at school in our cars. And I live in a community where, my daughters went to school or go to school in a community where the population is very liberal, very supposedly environmentalist. And you will see, 100 plus cars lined up at the school with the engines running, and because it's hot out, with the air conditioning running. And they haven't managed to persuade the school district to, build a better transportation system so that we don't have this line of cars polluting the air. Yeah. And we have diesel buses coming and picking kids up. And, we don't have a very environmentally friendly education transportation system, despite having a school district that is dominated by the radical left and the Democrats. And I'm not a Republican, by the way. I'm actually a registered Democrat. But I just, the people who supposedly care about the environment claim they care about the environment, but they don't deliver policies that actually help the environment.
All right.
The school board member who pushed hardest to make sure that children were wearing masks in our county was photographed at an event with a crowd of people not wearing a mask. Right. So it's, the politicians don't really represent the people, and they don't even represent what they claim that they care about.
Right.
They don't even actually live. It's we want these policies for you, and I'm going to live my life however I want. Joe Biden traveling around, all these world leaders flying to whatever the latest conference is in their own jets, right? Massive CO2 emissions, massive consumption of fossil fuel to go to some event where they pretend they care about the environment.
Right.
So, but I'm rambling.
Yeah. No.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I guess I thought we could maybe end it with some questions from the subscribers.
Sure.
Yeah. So we have a question here from Hugh Dobson. So what are some of the competitive advantage of plant-based companies that can form over others in the space? Do you see a winner that takes all scenario down the track? No,
I don't see a winner takes all scenario. I see that there are hundreds of different meat products out there.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of different categories. There's all kinds of fish. There's all kinds of beef-based products. There's all kinds of pork, chicken, lamb, and within each category, there's different types of meat within the animal.
Right.
So I think there's tremendous potential for, one company is the market leader in bacon, and one company is the market leader in tuna sashimi, and another company is the market leader in burgers. And even when there's a market leader, somebody's in second and third place. I think there's a potential for tremendous, think about this. How many different SUVs are there? Right. And they all look almost the same. And yet, Volkswagen sells SUVs, and Toyota sells SUVs, and Ford and General Motors and Tesla. There's all these SUVs out there. The idea that there's only room for one is missing the point, that we have a tremendously diversified marketplace, and there's plenty of opportunity for plenty of providers.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when it comes to, I think you've talked about that with Mayur, when it comes to the chicken alternative that they came out with now, and they're obviously going to make more and more chicken alternatives, that in itself could also, I think, be a game changer to some extent, because people eat, my understanding in the US anyways, and I think mostly in Europe as well, people eat way more chicken than red meat.
I need you to get a Beyond Meat chicken product and make a chicken tikka masala, and then tell me how it is.
Yeah.
And send me the recipe. If you like it, send me the recipe.
Definitely.
Indian cooking is very, very challenging because there's so many different spices.
Yeah.
But ideally, if you come up with a fairly simple recipe, it doesn't have to be tikka masala, but like a chicken curry type dish.
Yeah.
A simple one using a Beyond Meat chicken.
Yeah.
Send me the recipe, and I will try to make it.
Definitely.
I made a lentil coconut milk curry just the other day.
Yeah. How was that?
Very good. I put a little too much spicy pepper in, but it was still very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I always have to be careful with that. Otherwise, my girlfriend kills me. She doesn't like it when it's too spicy. Yet her stepson wants it to be spicier, so I have to have a mix there. Kylie B here. What new innovative products do you think Beyond should be making next to further increase the transition for omnivores to a more plant-based diet? So far, it's just been fast food type of food. I personally would like to see some sort of shrimp or other seafood. I think that could be the next big step.
So I don't think they're just doing fast food. I have breakfast sausage patties in the freezer right now. I don't think burger is inherently fast food. Like I mentioned it earlier, I think fish. I think that there's a tremendous opportunity with the problems of overfishing the seas.
Yeah.
And the fact that a lot of cuts of fish are very high price per pound or per ounce. I think there's there's a lot of countries where seafood is more commonly eaten. I would go with you on the chicken. Like that, more chicken-based products would make a lot of sense. If somebody came up with chicken tenders, chicken breasts, like for me personally, like I would like to make my lentil curry and put chicken in it.
Yeah.
Put a Beyond Meat chicken or a Beyond Meat spicy sausage or something. I would love to experiment with that. I actually think it's a lot less, for me, I think it's a lot less about coming out with different products and a lot more about getting the cost down.
Yeah.
if the Americans eat a lot of burgers,
Yeah.
if you can drive the cost of burger meat down to close to parity with ground meat, let's say ground sirloin,
Yeah.
you can get it down to $3-4 a pound, $4 or $5 a pound. If they can get it down to $4 or $5 a pound for just ground beef, that's a game changer. I mean, I will no longer buy. I probably won't buy ground beef anyway, because I'm not poor. But I think you will get more and more people to switch.
Yeah.
If you can get it down. And I also don't eat a lot. I'm trying to eat less. Like you mentioned, eating 3 to 5 times a day. I'm trying to eat twice a day.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you do intermittent fasting?
I mostly skip lunch.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I skip dinner.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Yeah. I'd say like once a week I skip dinner. I try to skip lunch every day, and I cheat and eat lunch sometimes.
All right. I do 16-8 or sometimes 18-6 or something like that. But
what does that mean?
Oh, it's 16 hours without eating, and then I have a time frame with 8 hours.
Even in an 8-hour window, right?
Yeah.
No, for me, I don't make it. For me, it's just I wake up in the morning, I exercise, I eat breakfast, and then I work, and I can work through lunch without noticing I'm not eating lunch, and then I'll eat dinner in the evening, and then the goal is if I can have a busy evening, I'll skip dinner.
Yeah. Have you done that for a long time?
No.
Because I feel like maybe too personal that you've lost weight, and
I lost 20 pounds. I've been doing for about, I want to say 2 months. I've been doing intermittent fasting, and I've been trying to do low carb for a long time. I've changed, so I won't go into details, but I've changed some things in my personal life that make it easier for me to be low carb, that make it easier for me to eat a healthy diet, so that there's no inappropriate snacks in the closet, and make it easier for me to get some exercise in. And I'm making some changes in that way so that I can, I like to think that at 55 I have 20 years left, but maybe I can push it to 25 or 30. Not life, but productive life.
Yeah, understandable. Definitely. And 55 is nothing. So, well, I have to think so. I'm there in 10 years. So,
if 55 is older than 45 and it's older than 35, but I will say this: I believe that Neuralink could be the key to immortality. Right?
Wow, we're going to have a whole other video for that, because that's something that people think I'm insane when I talk about immortality, and I believe that we might in our lifetime be able to maybe extend our lives with 100 to 200 years the way technology.
No. Neuralink could, if you go extreme on where Neuralink is heading, you may go to the point where you can upload your consciousness to the cloud and bring it down into a Tesla bot, or your consciousness can exist beyond the life of your body. I'm not saying we can make the body last forever, but we might be able to get to the point where your consciousness can last forever and even exist in more than one body, right? Oh. Maybe you could transport your consciousness into 2 bots or 10 bots or 100 bots. So that's really science fiction-y.
Yeah.
But landing orbital rocket boosters and reusing them was science fiction, say 7 years ago.
I'm a Trekkie since 30 years back, so for me that works.
Let me be clear. December 21, 2015 changed everything. December 21, 2015 was the first landing of an orbital rocket booster. It changed everything. That was science fiction becoming reality. There was nothing in our lives that has been more of making science fiction reality. I mean, going to the moon was big, right? Going to space was big. But landing an orbital rocket booster was impossible 10 years ago. Usefully landing an orbital rocket booster and reusing it. What SpaceX did, and they've done it like 90 plus times now. I'm going to watch another launch on Saturday. That one, the booster's going to land in the ocean. But the fact that they're doing that and where Starship is going, if you watch Starship test launches, you are watching science fiction become reality. So when I say Neuralink could allow us to upload our consciousness and make our consciousness immortal or near immortal, yeah, it seems like science fiction now. But 10 years from now, it's not going to seem like science fiction.
Well, about
maybe 20.
Well, I keep thinking about when iRobot with Will Smith came out 2004. If you've seen that, basically
not for a while, but yeah.
Yeah, and basically you saw the self-driving cars and robots there, and people probably didn't think that it would take within 20 years we would have self-driving cars.
Some people thought it was going to happen quicker. Self-driving cars is really hard, but I drive a self-driving car now, or I should say I sit in a self-driving car and supervise it now.
Yeah.
And it is science fiction becoming reality. But it's not perfect yet.
No.
But I can see that in 1 to 2 years, there's going to be cars driving on the road without a person in them.
I see it as a reality too. I still have colleagues when I talk to them about it. No, it's 20, 30 years away, they say. And I'm just wondering constantly, where have they been in the last couple of years?
Come for a ride in my car.
Yeah, definitely.
You want to change your mind on that? Come for a ride in my car. I'm not saying it's perfect. There's going to be moments when you're going to say, oh, it didn't do that right. Yep, it didn't do that right.
Well, send your address and I'll send that to those people so they can. Is it down in Florida, right?
Come to South Florida. I'll take you for a
ride. Just a few more questions here then. So how can we shift public perception and how can we shift government approach? That's what we've been talking about, subsidies here, which would instantly bring Beyond to price parity with beef, a carbon tax.
It's the same way that we shifted public perception on electric vehicles. People bought Teslas and they took their friends for rides. Yeah. I would say almost every day I take someone for a ride in my Tesla. Yeah. And I think no one gets a new Volkswagen and says, hey, you got to go for a ride in my Volkswagen. Right? Nobody gets a Golf or a Camry and says, hey, you got to see how amazing this thing is. But everyone who gets a Tesla takes friends for rides. Yeah. And when we start making there you go again, when we start making impossible, when we invite people over to our homes and we cook Beyond Meat for them or we cook impossible foods for them,
yeah.
When that happens, people say, oh, you say, what did you think of the burger? Oh, that was amazing. Okay, let me show you this. You should try this.
Yeah.
Wait, that wasn't real meat? No, it is real meat. It's just not coming from an animal.
Yeah.
Check it out. Try it. See what you think. As we show our friends how great this product is, that will increase public acceptance of it.
Yeah, exactly. So I like that you share that experience.
If you're going to have a party, make some products with Beyond Meat products and Impossible Foods products and whatever other plant-based or cell-based products are available. And tell people, and you have some other things that they can eat. Say, hey, try this. Tell me what you think of it.
Yeah.
What is that? And you tell them, this is Beyond Meats. This is this product. It's funny because I've been eating Beyond Burgers a little bit. And my friend said you should try the Beyond Breakfast Sausage. Right? He thought the Beyond Breakfast Sausage was really good. And he was right. It's the word of mouth that drives it more than anything else.
And that's the funny thing. I've never tried the sausages. And I have heard several of my subscribers saying that that's actually the best plant-based product out there. Better than the burger. I have no idea, but it's that good, eh?
Yeah. It's good. I mean, I would just say it's good.
Yeah.
It's not like I ate it and I went, oh my God, I'm never going to eat anything else again, right? It's good.
Yeah.
And I had it with eggs, right? It's not like instead of bacon, I had the Beyond sausage, right? That morning I had Beyond sausage instead of bacon. So
that's good. That's good.
Is it better than bacon? No, but it's good.
Yeah. And there was one question just from Running Man here. Concentrate on Beyond moat. Do you feel that they have a moat?
Yes, a little bit. I think that I don't know if I would quite call it a moat, but the fact that they're expanding to produce internationally, the fact that I think that I would almost say they have a branding moat, that they are establishing themselves as the lead player. Yeah. And it's sort of if you're going to try one of these products, that's the one you're going to try. But I don't really think Tesla has a moat, right? Tesla is telling other people, this is what you got to do. Do single piece castings, do structural battery pack. What's comical to me is I look at how Volkswagen, and other car companies are saying, okay, we're going to make an electric vehicle. And they're trying to make a vehicle that's as good as the 2018 Tesla Model 3.
Yeah.
And they're not quite getting there, right? But by the time they get there, it's 2023 and Tesla's already producing 2021 really, or 2022, Tesla's producing front and rear casting Model Y with structural battery pack that is way better than the 2018 Model 3. And by the time they actually catch the Model 3, right, then we're going to be at the battery day vehicle, which is going to be a single piece casting of the whole chassis and other innovations. And it's like they should be looking at what Tesla's doing and say at battery day in particular and say, okay, let's try to make what they're going for in 2023. Let's see if we can get there by 2025. So we're only 2 years behind them.
Yeah.
Instead of by 2023, we're going to be making something that's as good as the 2018 Model 3 and we're going to be 5 years behind. right?
Yeah.
And I think so the question is, if you were, I don't, I think Impossible and Beyond are roughly equal competitors. Beyond probably has a little bit of an edge. I think that Impossible is still doing good things. I don't see a moat in that context, but they're both building moats that make it hard for others to get in there and
Yeah.
compete. And I think the other big moat is what you mentioned about the 200 researchers. If you can bring in the best researchers in that field to your company and you reward them and they want to stay and you grow, then it's hard for other companies to draw in talent to be able to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's actually one of the challenges for other companies that are trying to make EVs to compete with Tesla or be comparable to Tesla is that, and the goal shouldn't be, by the way, to be as good as Tesla. The goal should be better than internal combustion engine.
Yeah.
The goal isn't to be better than Beyond. The goal is to be better than animal-based meat.
Yeah.
So I think the moat concept is wrong because Beyond Meat is like less than 0.1% of the market, right, of the total meat market. So don't worry about moats. If you want to start up a plant-based meat or cell-based meat company, just focus on being better than animal-based meat.
Yeah. And well, the vegan in me would say that's not very hard, but that's when it comes from a health perspective, then. But
Yeah.
let's see. One more question from Gita. For me, the biggest benefit that Beyond possess over beef is that Beyond have proved that we do not need to take the life of an animal to have a nice meal. But why don't any of the investors seem to acknowledge this? Almost all seem to solely be fixated on environmental or health benefits. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my answer to that is, if the goal is to make a competitive product that you are able to sell for a lower cost than the animal-based industry and make a profit,
Yeah.
then the fact that the harsh reality is that killing animals does not create an additional cost or increase revenue, does not affect revenue.
Yeah.
The number of consumers who care about that is extremely small. So the environment, it's not so much the environmental benefit makes it profitable, it's that the environmental benefit lowers the cost of production.
Yeah.
Right. And the nutrition benefit, I think, improves attractiveness to the consumer.
Yeah.
So the number of consumers who are concerned about killing animals is, although if you follow veganism, you think it's a big number. If you're in the rest of the world, it's not.
But do you think it's about not that you don't care about the animals, but it's more of a cultural thing, the way we've been brought into, the way we see the world, that if we see it as normal, we're not really going to question it. We're not really going to go into depth what we're actually doing.
We have a disconnect.
Yeah.
We don't see the dead animal when we eat meat.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not putting a picture of the dead animal with its throat slit on the package.
Yeah.
So we're not aware. Am I aware that animals are killed to make my bacon? Yes. Do I think about it? No.
No, exactly.
And I probably don't want to think about it. And there's sort of a nature's cruel, right? If you go out in nature, you can see lions eating animals all the time. There's the fish in the sea, the sharks are eating the other fish, the dolphins are eating the other fish. This notion that we're going to stop animals from killing each other is probably a little bit of a fantasy.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's more. I think a lot of us who choose right now not to eat, animal foods, feel that maybe there was a time and place in the world where we had to eat meat and had to consume dairy to some extent because we needed the calories. It made sense, but more the argument today is, well, it doesn't make sense for most parts of the world today. It doesn't mean all parts. We can't ask an Inuit to become a vegan, right? Because that's not their reality.
No, I just think the goal is, look, so I have this idea for a single passenger electric vehicle. And what happens? I get an email from somebody saying, you should make it wheelchair accessible. Look, I'm trying to solve a problem for 90% of the world.
Yeah.
And I'm a small startup with very limited resources. Yeah. I can't solve all the world's problems. Let me try to solve one.
Right.
So, for plant-based meat, for cell-based meat, there's the bulk of the population that we can try to serve that live in cities around the world That's way more than half the world population. If we can get them eating Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods, plant-based meat, and cell-based meat, it will gradually spread elsewhere.
Yeah.
But we can't. They can't produce enough meat for everybody yet, anyway.
Right.
So let's start. Scale production, reach the appropriate markets, and then grow it over time. And gradually, if we're right that the environmental advantages make it lower cost to produce and make it healthier, then it will win out, and they will be able to scale and eventually wipe out animal-based agriculture.
Right. And that takes us actually to a new question that I think is related to what you've been interested in, is that Josh Fisher, I'm kind of curious what he thinks about plant-based versus lab-grown meat.
I don't know enough about lab-based meat. I think that I've heard that it has some advantages over plant-based meat, but I haven't seen a lab-based meat company scale yet. I don't know if any of them have hit the market with any meaningful products.
Well, it's just who has just eggs. I'm not sure if you tried that.
No, I haven't tried any of them, but I'm just saying, I think that it's one thing to talk; it's another thing to actually deliver products to consumers.
Sure.
And until they deliver products to consumers, I love the concept, but I don't know enough to judge that yet.
No.
In principle, it makes sense to me that it should be as good or comparable, but it's just sort of one of those things that's going to take time. And I'm rooting for them to succeed, and there's room for both in the marketplace. It doesn't have to be that there's one winner. No. Just like there's 10 or 20 car companies that are succeeding right now. It doesn't have to be that there's one winner in the plant-based meat category. There could be 10.
Yeah.
Let's hope for 20.
I think actually they have a daughter company called Good Meats, which is a cellular company, cell lab meat company, and they actually have made a deal with Singapore to I think it was a half a year ago, to start selling lab-grown meat there in restaurants. Really expensive right now, but still cheaper if you compare it to a couple of years ago. So, but the TAM possibilities it's really early stage because
there's plenty of room for all the players to succeed, and let's see them. I'd like to see as many of them succeed as possible, but they have to do it by making products that people want to eat and delivering them to customers. And until they're delivering them to customers and people actually want them, then it's not, and delivering them to a few people in Singapore is not the same as putting them in supermarkets in large countries.
Right. The two last questions here. Scott L asks him where he sees this stock in 5 to 10 years. And I guess
Beyond Meat?
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I mean, I would say 10 years, I think it's at least 10x where it is now. And it's potentially 100x. I mean, it's a question of, can they scale? Can they get the price down so that they can achieve more market, reach more consumers who are willing to pay for it? And can they scale production?
Yeah.
So I don't have a sense of what their plans are to build their next factory and how big they can get a factory to go. They need to really scale production very heavily, and I don't think it makes sense to scale production until you've gotten your costs down.
No.
So my bet would be that Ethan Brown understands all that. And that he's working on it, and that he and the team are going to get there. And I think there's strong potential for a 10x in 10 years, and there's some potential for a 50 or 100x in 10 years.
Yeah.
But they have to scale production.
Yeah. And what I love about him is equal to Elon Musk, is that he constantly states he doesn't care right now about stock price, and he doesn't care about it sounds weird when it says that, maybe, about revenue, because it's all about making the perfect product. That's his, and then the other things will take care of itself.
Yeah.
So, and the last one here is from Karibin Singh. Ask about how their financials look, what he thinks of their balance sheet. Also, I'm curious when Beyond Meat should turn profitable, and how much gross and net margin is possible for this company in the long term. And not sure if you had looked into those kind of details.
I haven't. I think you'd have to look at my interview with Mayor Thacker to get more in depth on that. I think that if they're able to scale production, that brings costs down. If they're able to, which they're already doing, if they're able to move production to near the consumer and reduce transportation costs, then that drives the cost down. when you drive the cost down, you increase margin or you lower price.
Yeah.
And I think for Beyond Meat, it's more important to lower price than it is to increase margin in the short run.
Yeah.
But once they, if Ethan Brown is correct, and I think he is, and they're able to scale production to a larger scale, then that leads to higher margins.
Yeah.
Because that means lower cost per unit.
Yeah. And price parity is supposed to be around 2024.
I don't think they need to achieve. I don't think they need to. It depends on what parity with what, right? If their goal is price parity with the cheapest ground beef, that's a long way off. If their goal is parity with the medium grades of ground beef that a lot of people are buying anyway, yeah, that might be 2023 even.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't wrap my head around that one because I don't know what they're, definitely if they get their factories up and running on individual continents and now they're reducing the transportation costs. And I think it's really a question of building a bigger facility and producing in higher volume. That's a bet that they're going to have to make at some point that, hey, let's, what can we do in terms of achieving economies of scale by building a bigger factory and producing in higher volume? Can they increase the velocity of production, which is like, it's harder to increase the velocity of production, right? Because it's not like, there's a chemical process that has to go through to convert the pea proteins into meat.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know that I think that's one of the challenges for Beyond is it may not be possible to increase, with Tesla, they're trying to increase rapidly the rate at which they produce the products. I think there's a limit on that for Beyond. So that's one of their challenges. They may not be able to overcome that point, but you can still make a larger factory and do things more efficiently and just produce more.
Yeah, I wonder about because they made deals with McDonald's, PepsiCo, and Yum Brands. And Yum Brands is Kentucky Fried Chicken. Yeah, and so the thing is, they're right now with a McDonald's deal is during 3 years, right? So they've modestly started to expand now more in Europe, and now just trying out 8 places in the US. But one analyst actually believes that McDonald's wouldn't be trying them out in different cities in the US if they're not really expecting them to really expand there. So they do actually expect them to be at 13 or 14,000 McDonald's next year.
But it's not really. That's a demand issue, and I don't think Beyond's problem is demand.
No,
Beyond's problem is production. Can they produce at scale at lower cost?
Yeah.
You and I both agree the product is already good enough.
Yeah.
Right. The ground beef product at least is already good enough. I can tell you the breakfast sausage product is good enough. It's just a question of producing at lower cost and higher volume.
Yeah.
It's not about the customer. It's not about demand anymore.
Yeah.
Doing it at McDonald's may, placate Wall Street that thinks there's a demand issue. I see zero demand issue. Anybody who eats Beyond Meat tells their friends, hey, this is great stuff. Not anybody. Some people don't like it. People are picky about anything. Some people say they don't like McDonald's. Some people say they don't like Burger King. There are people who think McDonald's is better than Burger King and Burger King is better than McDonald's. And there's people who won't eat either one. Right? I get friends that make fun of me for going to Taco Bell. Right? But the practical reality is that, if it's good enough and people are telling their friends, hey, I just had this, you should try it. It's not a demand issue.
Right.
Produce more, produce it at scale. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are having demand issues, but I don't think so.
No, we'll find out. We're looking forward to the Q3 results now that they get in next week on Wednesday, I think. But they have lowered expectations, which got the stock to basically go down another $15. But I think that for me personally, if you have the possibility, that means it's just a great opportunity to invest more. Because again, short-term noise, and I don't worry about that.
Yeah, I think that I don't know how much cash they're going to have left, and if they're going to do a funding round, and I think it may be that they do a funding round and that boosts the stock because people see that they're more secure. But I just don't think there's a funding issue. So it's a way. I think life is a patience game. Okay, can you be patient? A lot of our encounters in life, if you get pulled over by the police, that to some extent it's a patience game. Yeah. People want to get the encounter over with, so they say things they shouldn't say, and that leads to them getting arrested for saying something stupid that exposes them as guilty of something. And investing is a patience game. Yeah. If you need to if you need to know what the share price is going to be tomorrow, then you're not being patient.
No.
Exactly. Right? If you're looking at Beyond Meat and you're saying, I think this company is going to be worth 100 times what it's worth today, Does it matter whether you bought it at $15 off or $20 off? It matters a little, but it doesn't matter a lot.
Yeah. All right, Warren. Thanks a lot for coming on the channel. I really appreciate this.
I can just pitch again, elonbits.com for the shirts. Please check out my channel on YouTube.
I'm gonna put up the link later also.
All
Definitely.
right.
And
Thank
hopefully,
you.
thank you. You can just remain here if I'm just finishing and.